Hey everybody, Jeff from Programming vs. World, and today on our retro dev topic, we're going to go back to 1984, and I'm going to show you how to set up a work disk for a Commodore 64 language called White Lightning. And I swear I've never met another human being that knew what this was, at least in the United States. In the UK, you guys are pretty savvy with knowing all these languages, because 64 is still very, very popular over there. But when I had a computer and I was a kid at 14, I actually had this language and I couldn't figure out for the life of me. So, I made it a mission to learn a little bit about Forth, a little bit about the internals of how the Commodore 64 works, how the 6502 chipset works, and I'm going to take the plunge. So before I could do any of that, I had to get the work disk set up the way the manual said that it did. And in an emulator, it wasn't super intuitive, and I floundered with it a little bit, but let me show you how to do that and some of the gotchas that occurred. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to just want to create an empty disk image that we're going to use as our primary method of saving code. And I'm going to go on RetroDev. I have a White Lightning directory here, and I'm just going to call, I'm just going to call this a work disk. You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to leave it D64, even though every now and then I have hiccups working with D64. It's probably just me, to be honest. We'll just go ahead and hit save. Now to make sure that I got my work disk loaded, I'm just going to look at it here, make sure it's there, and it's sitting right here. So now what I need is the actual White Lightning CD. And now I'll tell you now that there's quite a few that you can download out there, but I'm going to show you one thing that you need to look for. Like here's an example of one that I got from one site which has it does work, by the way. It does boot and the White Lightning thing comes up, but none of the disk features work. There's a cracked one here, which I'm not even understanding why that's 95 bytes and nothing else in there. I got a couple more, but eventually I went directly to a website, and do I have this site up? Yeah, off lemon64.com, there was actually a link. Yeah, lionlabs.org. So I'll put the link in the actual video of where I got it from. But I got this guy right here, and this looks exactly correct as to what the directory layout was on the CD when I was a kid. So I put a copy of it in here. We'll just attach and load this one real fast. I'll come back up here. We'll do a load and list. Notice I do not have True Drive emulation on, and that's just because for this format and the original loading, it's just too much. I'll turn it on here in a minute so you can see it. If you notice right in the middle of the directory listing, there's a file called format. That's the file that we're going to want to load. We'll just load it with a .8. And if we list it, you'll see that it's actually a program. Now, that program is listed in the manual, and you could type all this in, but I must have fought with this for like hours and I couldn't get it to work. And it turned out to be that I had the wrong version of the White Lightning CD. I needed the G64 actual copy of it that you can get from Lion Labs. Until I did that, none of this actually worked correctly. Let's go back, and we're going to attach our work disk to it again. And we're just going to trust that that's the disk that's in there, because when we run this, it's actually going to format that disk for us. Now, I'm just going to look at the disk for a moment. You notice the original disk that we set up had 664 blocks free right here. But I'm actually going to load it for real inside the emulator, and I want to show you something. It's actually only got 307 blocks free. I think this updates after I do that, to be honest. It does. So this formatter actually created a special place for you where the code itself could be stored, and it separated that from an alternate location. They say in the manual that 357 sectors are actually for the source code and 307 are for other. And there is a sort of a bootstrap that's needed when you finally zap this thing and make it a program that someone else can load directly from disk. So it makes sense that you need an extra space for that, and maybe sprites and whatever else you got going on. Anyway, our disk is there and we can physically see it. So now I'm going to smart attach our white lightning disk back, and I'm just going to load straight into it. I'll spare you the directory listing again. And that should boot into white lightning, and we can test and make sure we're in it. We'll just push 3 things on the stack and pop them off again. I'm sure it's going to work. So let's go into our settings, and let's not. You don't have to, but I'm going to. And I'm going to turn on the true drive emulation there that we just heard. Now whenever I list a specific screen, let's say I want to see screen 1, I can actually hear the disk drive spinning around like it would on the real thing, which is telling me that this is working correctly. Of course, there's nothing physically on the screen. So if I smart attach my work disk and do the same thing, I've physically changed disks. So now I'm on my work disk and I'm getting the same results. So let's test this, right? So let's put like our version of a hello world in position 0. We'll just say 0p. We'll make a word called hello. And we'll just have it output hello world. And I can list this again. Oh, look, it didn't bother to write it. That's fascinating. Did I actually put the word O? I actually put the word O in there. Idiot. All right, so 0p. We'll do the same thing again. Let's give us practice in typing it. And failing at that too. Now we hear the sound. We get an OK. Now when we list it, that specific word is placed at the top. A word in Forth is sort of like a function. It's, let me just show you. So I'll compile that down really fast so that word's added to the dictionary. And then when I type the word hello, I get the word hello back, a carriage return, and it's over. So that's like a function, sort of, except that its arguments come from the stack and the things in front of it. That's a tutorial for another day. Anyway, we got a hello program working. This was supposed to be the command according to the manual that caused the disk write, but you'll notice if you have the right version of White Lightning and the disk set up correctly, it just automatically does it. We can definitely test this by swapping disks again. Let's just go to some arbitrary disk here. And when I list this, you'll hear the seek, and then you'll notice the zero line and the editor's gone. So, good to go. The moment of truth is when we go back to our work disk and we list it, and our line is back again. So this is the sort of the development workflow for 100% in the box. You load White Lightning, it's in memory, it doesn't need your help anymore. You pull that disk out, you put this disk in, which is formatted to be your work disk, and you work directly off the screens. You put your code in each individual screen. You'll notice that there's many screens. I can say, well, what's on screen 2? It should just be empty, I can also say, let's clear screen 2. The disk won't stop spinning there. So you have all these options of how to sort of layer your code into each individual screen. And if you guys want to see tutorials on that, I can actually show you how this is all linked together. But for the most part, this just gives me a good starting point. So now that I have a place where I can actually type code in and work with different things and be able to keep it on disk so that I don't lose it. Because what normally happens is you start messing around and you say, oh, okay, I'm gonna put a window up here. Oh, I need to clear that. So let's clear it. And then you start, putting sprites on it and doing other stuff. And then before it's all said and done, you can't replicate what you've done to that point again, because you're not actually writing code. You're just sort of, messing around with the screen at the time. This gives you a way that you can actually put the line numbers in, and as you put them in, it's saved. And if you ever need to replicate what you already did, it's it's right there. You don't have to try to figure it out. So Forth has like this REPL aspect of it where you can physically create things in real time, but there eventually becomes a point in which you're going to want to put these on a screen and put it under an individual line number and have the disk automatically save it, not have to worry about it. So I hope that helps somebody. I wish this video existed a couple days ago. It would save me a day or two of time. But the truth is, it's a lot of fun to go through here and figure this out. And the manual is helpful, but it's taken into account that you physically have the floppies in your hand. When you're doing this through an emulator, there are little gotchas everywhere. And I think if it wasn't for the fact that Lion Labs actually has a list of all the software for the Commodore in different languages and still has the links to the original backups, that this wouldn't even be possible. If you were on a hacked copy of the White Lightning CD, it's not going to work. It just doesn't work. So that's really what was stopping me, as I was using some random D64 that I downloaded instead of physically going to a reputable source and getting that backup. But anyway, hope that helps someone. If you're interested in more retro tutorials, let me know. I'm going to be playing around with Forth for a while, just because I know more today about this language, especially the ideal extensions that they put into the language for White Lightning than I've ever learned before. So I'm going to have fun. I'm going to play with this, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.